the USDA website and find, or just do a search in Google or whatnot, and find the PDF for a given county. The only problem with the PDF is it's going to be missing the maps. They'll only have just the two big maps, but not the individual maps. So part one is what I use the most, and I'm interested to know from you guys how often or what parts of the soil survey book or website that you actually use. But part one is the traditional soils information about the given county. So it's all of that soil information that you're interested in, talking about the history of the county, some of the geology of the county. There's tables in there about the temperature and precipitation and the growing season, the freezing dates. Again, all of this is going to be on the web soil survey. And then just information about the general soil map units or the series. And then it gets more specific, talking about those individual soils that are found in a given area. So you can also find out the classification of the soils, the soil taxonomy, as well as the acreage and proportionate extent of the soils, which is also found in part 2. So if you get a chance, answer some of the poll questions as they start to show up. I've used the soil survey book for the following. Like I said before, I use the book mostly for the soil information. Part 2, we're going to talk about, has to do more with the tables. So it looks like some of you are answering. So most of you have used it for soil information as well. Okay, and almost, it's kind of moving back and forth. Okay, so you can get all of this information on the web, and we'll talk about that. How you find out, or how soil scientists come up with the soil information, is actually by digging soil pits or taking soil samples using a Soil Pro or soil auger. There's a picture in the PowerPoint, if we can move the poll picture over, of a typical soil profile. We dig these here on campus for our intro soil students. We dig about 4 pits a year, and so we take the kids down into the pits so they can actually see a typical soil profile. And so what we want to do is make sure we clean off any debris. And what the students do is they get into the pits and they start to characterize the soil. Okay, so they're looking at what horizons are there, the depth of those horizons. They're taking the texture within those horizons, determining the color, so the color code using the Munsell chart, and the actual name, determining the structure for each horizon, and observing if there's any modeling. All that information is then compiled, and you can see here a picture of the students in the pits trying to characterize the soils. All of that ends up in the pet-on description, the soil pet-on description that you find in part 1. So this is just an example from the soils textbook that kind of shows you that they go through and find out the horizon, the depth, and add all those physical property characteristics on there. So what you see on the PowerPoint now, it's kind of the bread and butter. It's what I'm most interested in. It's probably a little bit small for you guys to see, so it's just the typical pet-on description, general information about the soil. You're looking at the horizons, and then the depths associated with those, the color name and color code, texture, structure. Also, you can find out information about the classification or the soil order, the parent material that you find in the sea horizon, information on drainage, as well as slope information. So in the part 1 of the soil survey book, this is what I use the most, because let me give you an example. I'll get an extension call and somebody will want me to come out and look at their farm or their land, or have a question about something. Before I go out, I want to make sure that I know something about the soil, and I always carry my soil probe with me. Okay, so I do a little bit of homework before I actually go out into the field. Well, most of you know with the soil survey book, and for the people that are in this classroom with me, it gets really, really hard to carry around books and maps, right? And so I'm visually showing the group here the books. And then if you just have them for multiple counties, then your trunk gets really full. Okay, so these aren't very handy anymore, and so especially I'm not even including the whole packet of maps that go with this. That's in this other container over here. Open up those real quick so you guys can pass them around. So right now, I guess for me, I think the Websol survey works best for me because I can get a visual or get a map off of the internet, and then I can find out general information about the soils. But the Websol survey, one thing that it doesn't do well is that it doesn't give you this pet-on description. But if that's not your intended use, then you can kind of pick and choose between the book, the web version, and then the app. And we're going to talk about the app in a little bit. And what I love about the app is that it actually gives you this pet-on description, where you can't get that on the web. You can get some of the general soil characteristics, parent material, drainage, and so forth, but you just can't get all of this pet-on description online. So part 2, book format, is all the tables, all the information, all the tables. And so you have this big book. Well, you can get all of that information on the web, and so it condenses the size of those books into something that's maybe 8 or 10 pages, depending on the information that you want. There's a lot of information in part 2, from agronomy to soil properties in there. Just tables and tables of information that's useful, that you can find useful. And the whole point of using the Websol survey is to be able to explore. It depends on how much time you have, because there's a lot of information that you can explore through. Okay, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is just an example of a typical table that you would find in part 2 that looks at your yield potential for certain crops by the soil type. And what you can do on the web is only find that information for the soils that are listed in your area. Otherwise, in the book, they're listed in order by number, and you have to pick out which soils are found in your field. So it doesn't condense the information for you. Part 3 is the maps, and when I was a student, we used the Websol survey, or we used the survey book, and even students now trying to go back and teach them how to use the book, they really don't like the maps. Because now on the Websol survey, you can just put in an address and find your location. Okay, but it's basically divided into 2 different maps. The first one is your general soil map. It's a 4th order, and for the entire county, it's color-coded by the soils. And then the other map is a 2nd order map that shows you the individual map sheets, and you'll see an example here of the general soil map, so you can get an idea of what soil series are in a given area. And then you have to use the index to the map sheets to find what sheet you need to look for your area of interest. And like I said before, for students, this is the most frustrating part. They want information very quickly. They don't want to have to thumb through a lot of things to find an area they're looking for. And so it's really easy for them to put in an address and get close enough that they can kind of use the pen key or hand, and I'll show you that in a minute, to be able to figure out their area and then the soils in that area. And this picture here is just an example. You really can't see it very well on the screen, but it's just an example of the topographic map that you have, and it it shows the soil boundaries, and then it shows what soils are in a given area. So you spend a lot of time trying to find your certain area of interest, and then you have to write down which soils are in that area and then look up the information for each of those soils separately. So it's really, really time consuming. If you're interested in the different orders, I threw this slide in here to show you the different orders that exist between the general map and the index map, if you want further information on that. So let's talk about the Web Soil Survey. So basically everything that's in the books is now on the Web Soil Survey. However, I did mention before, for the detailed PED-ON descriptions, you can't get as detailed information on the Web Soil Survey, but there's a way to get around it using the app, and I'll show you that as well. So this is just a typical screen that you see for the Web Soil Survey. Again, it just becomes an interactive electronic device that you can use to get this information. And the purpose of the Web Soil Survey is that you can condense the information based on your given area. So it just kind of, if the book is 200 pages, you can condense it down into 10 pages if you want, just for that given area. So you can actually create your own PDF for a given location. Okay, and it'll even show a really nice picture on the front of the PDF of the area that you have selected as your area of interest, and then it'll have a really nice map inside with your soil legends and whatnot, and showing you the boundaries of those soils. And then you can add any information that you want to this PDF to create it. And a lot of my students use it for projects, especially in the soil fertility class. They'll go on Web Soil Survey, they'll highlight an area of interest, usually out here on the farm, and they'll get the basic soil information, a little bit of fertility information, production information, yield potential, drainage information, and then they'll include that in their fertility management plan when they actually select 3 to 4 crops that they're going to manage. So just an example of how we use it here on campus. So this next slide just shows you the home page. I tell my students that this is the easy button, start the Web Soil Survey. I think it's like an Office Max commercial or something like that, but it's a red button. But all you have to do is hit the start button to be able to start to use it. Couple of things. I know you can't read too much of this information on here because the PowerPoint's so small, but down here on the right hand side are some helpful links or helpful information if you ever get stuck. Okay, so let's talk about what you're going to do when you go onto the Web Soil Survey. You have to start with your area of interest. That's how you cut this information from the books in half, or even less than that, as we talked about before. So you have to select the area of interest. Intro students have a little bit of difficulty trying to use the area of interest. It takes a little bit of practice to use. And when we go through the demo, I'll give you some hints. But one thing I want to tell you right away is the bigger the area, the more information. And so it takes longer to process that information and then to create your PDF. At the end, when you're starting to complete your PDF, if it's too big, you can delete things from the PDF. So say that you have a table on CEC, then you don't need the picture that shows where or how much CEC is located in certain areas of your field. You can delete that. So at the very end, you have it's almost like a shopping cart when you're buying clothes, and you decide, okay, I'm only going to spend $100. I bought these pairs of shoes. It takes me over $100. Okay, I'm not going to buy them, and so you can just take it out of your shopping cart, right? It's the same thing, same principle. So once you've chosen your area of interest, then you need to figure out what soils are in that area, okay? So it'll tell you, based on what you've outlined as your area of interest, what soils are in that area, how much of that area is covered from that soil type, okay? So you can get some basic soil information using that tab. Then, I love this part in the bullet 3. Explore is a huge word, and that's exactly right. You could spend hours upon hours upon hours exploring all the information on the web soil survey, okay? And I'll give you some hints on how to maybe decrease your time. But if you're, looking for something to do, a little bit bored, there's not any football anymore after the Super Bowl, right? You can go on there and just kind of, look, shop around a little bit. But then in the end, when you're ready, then you can make your own PDF. You can print it off or you can save it. But one thing's for sure, you have to make sure that if you want that information, you have to put it in your shopping cart. Otherwise, you got to backtrack. So that's the hard part, is remembering to add it to your shopping cart. So we're going to first define our area of interest. We're going to view our soil map. And these are the directions that are on the website themselves, but I'm going to give you a little bit more information here. So when you start your web soil survey options, so using the easy button, you get a picture here of the United States. You have to define that area of interest. You could click on Minnesota if you wanted to. Or you've got some options over here on the left-hand side. And I know it's a little blurry for you because the PowerPoint is so small on this Connect. But as we go through the demo, those of you who have computers, hopefully you'll be able to see that information. But you can put in the address, you can put in the state and county. You can give a legal land description for those of you guys who learned that in Intro Soils. There's multiple ways that you can find your area of interest, okay? And once you decide what area of the field that you're interested in, you have to select it. So there's 2 buttons up here on the top called AOI, your area of interest. One's a rectangle, one's a polygon, and you can just highlight what area of the field you're interested in. Now again, the bigger that you make this, the more data, so the more time that it's actually going to take. And I think the next slide, right up here at the top, the right 2 buttons are the buttons that you want to select to make your area. The easiest one to use is a rectangle. You just draw out a rectangle. And then the lines here going diagonal show you that it has been selected. So that area has been selected. And then these are just the tools that you can use at the top of the page. And in the PowerPoint, I wanted to make sure that I put those in a PowerPoint, because if you're going through this, sometimes you don't know exactly what every little icon means. And it's a good reference for you to have as you're kind of going through there. For me, I use the zoom in, zoom out, and then the pan, or what looks like a hand the most. My students actually use the measure, it looks like a ruler, to try to get an idea of how big the area is. But there's a bunch of different tools that you can use. The legend is going to be important if you decide to use any kind of maps, because it'll color code it, and you're like, well, what does that color stand for? You want to make sure you hit the legend. And we'll kind of go through some of these as we go through the demo, but these are all the tools that are at the top. So once you've selected the area, we're going to hit Soil Map tab at the top, and you can see that the boundaries have been drawn in for the different soil types, and then they're listed on the left-hand side. So it shows you the symbol, the name of the soil. It tells you how many acres in your selected area is that soil, and then the percent. And what's really nice is that if you want some instant information and don't want to fool with the PDF, you can actually click on the soil name, which it's a hyperlink, so it's in blue. You can click on the soil link and it'll give you some soil information really quick, but no map. So if you want the map, you have to go through the PDF process. But if you really quickly want to know what the texture of that soil is in the top 7 inches, then you can click on the link and it'll tell you that information, just basic soil information without adding it to your cart. So the big part of this is exploring, and you know, it's a little bit much because there's so much information on there. So you have to kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. And I don't know, sometimes it's just easier to do trial and error. But like I said, I'm going to give you some hints to help you find certain information. And then whatever you do, don't forget, it's like buying clothes or going on Amazon. If you want the information in the PDF, you have to add it to your cart. Okay, and it's free to create the PDF, so don't think you have to pay anything. And again, you'll have a choice to delete things at the end if you want to, and then you can either save it or you can print it out right then and there. So the explorer part of this, being able to explore. These are actually, each bullet is the tab that's going to be at the top of the page. And this is the most helpful information. I'd put a star in the corner. I always tell my students, this is an important slide. Put a star, highlight it, something. These are the actual tabs that are on the top. So these are the tabs that you can choose to explore. And then within each tab is tons and tons and tons and tons of information. I'm not kidding. You'll see when we do the demo. The first tab is Introduction to Soils. Okay, so if you're not familiar with soils or just kind of want some general information about soils, you can go to that tab. And you have an option of clicking on certain information, or you can go through all of it. Okay, but it's just kind of a basic introduction. Like if you don't know what CEC is, cation exchange capacity, then it would tell you in this section. If you don't know what the soil orders are or what a vertisol is, you know, it would tell you in this section. So it's just basic information. The first big tab is suitabilities and limitations for use. And then you have the soil properties and qualities, maps and tables. Basically, it's all the soil report information from part 2, all that general information, but it's actually divided into 2 portions, because big thing here is you can add maps. Okay, for my students, they always like to dazzle their professors by adding a map, especially using, you know, the expensive printer to have a color copy, right? They're like, wow, look what I did, I made a map. So each of those contain maps. You can find the same information in the soil report, but it's only tables. So it's just like part 2 of the soil survey book, okay? It's just basic table information. Whereas with the suitabilities and the soil properties, you have the option of providing both a map and a table. However, again, the maps take up a lot of memory and a lot of space. So unless you just want tons of maps, it's going to slow you down a great deal. So just keep that in mind. The ecological site assessment, it's kind of grayed out because it depends on your area. It's rangeland or forest land ecological site data. So it's only going to be accessible if it's for that current location. So soil reports, all the tables from part 2, and then you can either print it off, put it in a PDF, or you can save it for later. And there are some GIS applications that you can use with this information. So this is everything that you could explore. So let's take a look at the first one, Intro to Soils. You can see it's just general information about the soils. All the different areas that it covers are on the left, so you can click on those if you want to include that information in your cart. So up at the corner, top corner, you have a printable version, or add it to the shopping cart. Most people, if they don't, or they have a question about soils, they don't necessarily want to include it in the PDF. So that's why they can print it off as separate, or they can include it into the shopping cart. So this is a lot of information. You know, I wouldn't include it all, I'd just read it on the screen. But if there's something in particular you want to know, you can click on the box and then just have that information printed or added to the shopping cart. But we're assuming that most of you guys have used, or know soils in general, so maybe only need a little reminder of what things are. So the first real tab, we'll say, is the suitabilities and limitations for use. On the left-hand side are the broad categories, and you have a question mark, and then a double down arrow, and then at the top you have open all, close all. Okay, this is just the main topics. If you hit a down arrow, then you can see all of the topics within building site development, all the topics within construction materials. If you're not really sure what goes into each area, you can just open them all. But it's a lot of information. See, I could only fit the first 3 on here: building site, construction materials, and disaster recovery planning. You can close them. You look down at construction materials. Okay, I'm not interested in that. You can close it. Okay, so there's tons of information. I think what's frustrating sometimes is when you're looking for particular information and you're not really sure where you need to look. So the first couple of times you might want to open them all, or open it all and then say, okay, well, no, that's not what I was looking for, and close it. But these are the main categories, and then they expand. Okay, so like if I was doing this for my soil fertility class, one of the things that we would look at right away is land classification, land management, and productivity. Okay, so lots of information in here. So for example, if we click on one of the tabs, it's going to bring up information in the map format as well as the table format. Okay, so we're just kind of looking at the map that would bring up, and we're actually going to do some examples here. But what the students like is they can actually get this nice map. It's like a map over the map that you've selected, and it shows variation within the field in color. They love color. But you want to make sure that you know what the legend is, and if you click on the legend, the map legend appears there. Okay, so you probably can't see this really well, but the red is telling us what's not prime farmland, and then the green are all the areas that are prime farmland. Okay, so it's a nice visual, but it also gives you, here we go, a table, a nice table, and it shows all the soils in that given area of interest or location that you selected. So it also gives it to you in a table format. Okay, so that's why it's nice to use the Explorer and these 2 sections, the suitabilities and limitations, rather than just the soil reports, because you get the picture. So this shows soil properties and qualities, and for me, I use this one all the time. It shows you chemical properties, soil erosion factors, physical properties, soil qualities and features, and water features. And if you're not sure what's in each of those, you can open them all, and you can see that it's expanded view. So CEC is under here, pH is under chemical properties, your soil erosion factors, what's the K factor of that particular soil, physical properties, available water, bulk density, and the list goes on and on. There's a lot of information in here, but what it does is it gives you the option for the map. Okay, so this one is actually cabinet exchange capacity, and this is a really nice map because it shows you some different colors in here. So it's nice representation in a PDF for sure. And then this is showing, I believe, pH. No, organic matter. And again, it's nice when you have a big area with multiple soils in there because you can see all the different colors. And again, you want to make sure you click on that legend button so you know what those colors represent. And then the last one, the last tab, is the soil reports. Now remember, just tables. So it's everything from part 2 of the book. It's the first two tabs that we talked about, the suitabilities and the soil properties all together. And again, it's a lot of information. You can open it all, close some. You know, I'm not interested in the AOI inventory, but I'm interested in land classification. You can open just that. But tons and tons and tons of information that's available. And it's the typical map. Okay, so it's even better than photocopying the book itself. It's a nice table, okay, to give you information about the different soils that you have in your area. This happens to be land capability, so you know, you've got your land capability classification and then any kind of limitations that soil has. So W example would be for wetness, S would be for shallowness of the soil, so you probably have some drought conditions in those type of soil. E would be for erosion, so maybe I'm bringing back some intro soil memories here by talking about the land capability classification. This is the one I use a lot for students, our soil orders, the taxonomy of soils. They have to look at the entire name, use the endings to come up with what type order it is, what soil order it is. They have to know this information to be able to classify the soils. But if you're in a hurry and you want just basic information, I would go with the soil reports. It's all tables. But if you're wanting to put something together to present to someone, you know, the maps, people like maps. So now I'm going to move into, we're going to move into the Soil Web app, and I love it. Absolutely, absolutely love it. There's not a ton of information on there, so it's nice because you can't get lost like you can. You don't have to worry about exploring the Soil Web app, okay? And you can put it on your phone or your iPad, your iPhone or iPad, and then the download is free. And what I'm going to do is show you a couple of the screens, and for the people that are actually in here with me, I'm going to open it up on my iPad and pass it around so you can see. So for you guys that are listening in, if I kind of sound like I'm moving a direction, I'll come back to the computer. But I'm going to pass this around to you guys. So it's just the Soil Web app, and it's really super duper easy to use. So what you're looking at is the home page. When you actually open the app, this is what you'll see. And it's just basic instructions. And it's just like anything on the web. Anything in blue and highlighted bold, you can double click to get more information. So first things first, you want to get my location, okay? So you actually have to physically be there. That's maybe one of the issues that people might have a problem with. But you actually have to be there. So you want to click on Get My Location if you guys want to try it in here. And it tells you the soils that are located in this area. So we're actually on campus. We have Fargo and Bearden here on campus. And actually, you guys are probably looking at Gun Club in Hingy, Fargo, aren't you?
It's Fargo and Hingy.
Hingy, yeah. Okay, so yeah. So it shows you what the two soils are in your location. And to get more information, you can double click on the name, which is like in blue, right? You can just click on that. Or you can actually click on the soil profile here with the horizons in it. And I like this because it's a visual thing. You can see what those horizons are and the general depth right away. Okay, you don't have to read a whole lot. It's right there. So I can see, okay, that Fargo E-horizon forest soil, right? Actually, that's a BW. So that would be a weak B, right? If we're talking about soils, okay? Intro soils, that is. But you can double click on the name or the profile. So let's see, in the PowerPoint, the first thing that comes up is the name. So we've double clicked the name and we get endless information. And again, remember, if it's blue, you can double click on it. So if you wanted to click on what's a mollisol, it'll take you to that page. Okay? If you scroll down, you get these awesome graphs. And these are graphs that we actually draw in intro soils. So we draw a typical profile. How does organic matter change from the A horizon to the C horizon? How does clay change in the profile from the A to the C horizon? Which you can't get on the web soil survey and you can't get in the book. Okay, so cool information that you can get. Just basic information here, and then if you click on the profile, they're actually seeing it's endless information. So it tells you all about the soils. So it tells you the class, but more importantly for me, it tells me the pet-on description. Oh, I love it. So it tells me the horizon, the depth, the color, the texture, the structure, and it tells me what I'm supposed to be seeing when I actually go out there, right? And you can just scroll endless information. So, what does that mean? For me, I use kind of all of it together. I haven't completely, thrown the books away. I use the web soil survey the most. The app I absolutely love. However, if you don't have internet service out in the country, that's a problem. So you want to it's on your get your location. That's the only probably bad thing about it, is you can't, advance look, so to speak. But just for me, quick reference, I learned on the books. Quick reference for me, just because I use it so much, I can look up something pretty fast if I know what the soil is for that given area. But for maps, the web soil survey is the best. You can't beat those maps. Those maps are awesome. You can print them off. They look very professional. Like in the suitabilities and soil properties, you can create graphs and show those to people. They look really, really professional in the PDF format. And then the soil app, the soil web app, it doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but for me, I miss the pet-on descriptions in the web soil survey. And so this gives me the opportunity to be able to use it and get that information. And because it's an app and it's on an iPad, all the students go nuts for it, right? And they can put it on their phone and they can play around with it, and I'm sure it'll only advance in time. It's limited information, but again, it's something that's quick and easy, based on location, GPS, based on your location, and you can get right away. Okay? So it looks like we've got a couple of questions. I thought what we would do now is take a few minutes. If you have a question, you can send it to me on chat. I've got a couple of questions here, and then we'll move into the demo. We'll actually go on the web soil survey, and I'll show you how to create a PDF. And then after that, I'll give you a chance to actually try and do it yourself, because when you do it yourself, you have these questions that come up that you might not think to ask while we're sitting here. So there's an exercise. If you don't have an area of interest or don't know what you're interested in looking at, you can actually go through the exercise. You could do as much of it as you want, but I want to be able to show you how to end with a PDF and what the PDF actually looks like when we're done. Okay? And then if we can't for some reason get the PDF created, I have one somewhere on here that we can open up and look that I made for my soil fertility class. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of look through some of the questions and try to answer some of these. So just give me a few minutes and then we'll start up with the demo. Do you guys have any questions that are sitting here with me? Why don't we do that?
Just that one. Field participating in the local foods college have lots of different backgrounds, and so if people are new to kind of growing or have never used this site before, are there like key things that you should be looking in for, like, especially like growing produce, I'm thinking of, like, not necessarily like gardening at a large scale, but are there like key things that you would want to like look through, like, oh, this area is not suitable for growing produce, or oh, this is really like a good fit?
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, you know, what if somebody is new to growing a garden? What are some of the important data that you could get off of the web soil survey? That's actually a good question, because a lot of my extension visits are to lawns, actually, and everybody has the vegetable garden bug, right? So the good thing about if you're on a small scale, like a lawn scale, so let's start there, you can actually kind of, you know, do two things at one time. You can actually do a soil test analysis for your front yard and then for your backyard and get the same information. So you're kind of helping your lawn as well as your potential garden that you're going to grow, right? And so then you want to just cultivate your area. Soil test is the best way to start, because the chemical information that's on the web soil survey, it's a little bit old information, and I'm going to try to remember to show you how old that information is when we log on, okay? So if I forget, let somebody remind me to do that, so you can see how old that information is. And it doesn't include any kind of amendments you make, okay? So you want to test your soil. That's the best way to do it, okay? You can go on and find out basic soil information, but I think a soil test is going to be the best. But let me tell you how to go on. So you want to go on the web soil survey, put in your home address or put in your location, get your area of interest that you're interested in, and you want to look up chemical and physical properties, okay? So for this, I would just use the soil reports, okay? Don't worry about maps. And go to the soil reports and click on the chemical and physical properties. One thing about gardens is you want organic matter and you want a high CEC cation exchange capacity. So organic matter, you're looking for anywhere from about, the normal range is about 3 to 5%. So the more organic matter you have typically means the more nutrients you have, and you can compare that with the CEC value or concentration. The higher that number, the more nutrients that soil is able to hold on. But most of you that have vegetable gardens, you may want to amend your soil anyway, and that's where the soil analysis comes into play. So AgVise, you can send in soil samples to AgVise or down to the main campus. Just get a basic soil test, soil test report. So, you know, just take a couple of samples. You can just use an auger, or you can use a soil probe, and just kind of take some representative samples for your given area, put them into a bag. You have to be able to get the bags before you sample. So there's a little bit of homework. Once you decide where you're going to send your soil samples, you need to get bags and fill out the information, and you send it in, get the basic test, and it'll tell you things like what's your pH, what's your organic matter content, what's your CEC, what's your concentrations in the soil of calcium, magnesium, sulfur, phosphorus, and potassium. And phosphorus, you know, we have to be careful with phosphorus because it's bound to soil particles and can be lost in erosion and cause all kind of water quality issues. But you're wanting to see if you're missing anything or if you're low or deficient in anything, and then that's where you make your amendments to the soil prior to planting. So you kind of have to know what the issues are for a given area, and I would just add on here that you should just go ahead and do soil analysis. Okay, so there's a couple of questions on here. That the app is actually called the Soil Web app, and it's the same one for the phone or your iPad. Okay, and actually, I think if you download it to one, if you have both, it's in your cloud, so it's automatically added to your phone as well. So it's the Soil Web app, and the icon looks like a little map. Is exactly what it is. The soil survey maps I'm not sure if I understand the question. Just shows the top layer of soil. The maps show the types of soils that are given in that area. So if you're wanting to know what the top layer of soil is, you're going to look for the A horizon. Okay, so if you're only interested in the first couple of centimeters of soil or inches of soil, you want to look in that A horizon. So if you're planting for a garden, think about the types of plants that you're going to plant, know a little bit about their rooting depth. Hopefully their roots won't go into some of the subsoil because it's not very fertile at all, and it's going to be in that A horizon. So once you just find out what your soil are for that given area, then you want to look in the A horizon for texture, for structure, if there's any kind of restrictive features, organic matter content, which you can kind of estimate from the color of the soil. All of that would be helpful. So, not calm, what does that mean? I know with my students, if the area is too big, it doesn't like it. It's like it's too much information. So you may want to go back and reselect your area of interest and make it smaller. Sometimes there's not data available for a given area. I know I have that problem with one of my students who's from Duluth. I'm not sure exactly what not calm means, but definitely if the area is too big, that could be a problem. There's always a warning on the bottom of the picture anyways that talks about size. So if you're having problems retrieving data, maybe try to go back and change your area of interest. So I'm trying to see if I answered all of your questions so far, and then we'll actually move on to the demo. And then if we run out of time or whatnot, or you don't have your computer with you, then you can try this at home. It's like homework. Like I said before, there's an exercise, but I will say that if you have an area of interest yourself, it'll mean more to you if you actually choose your own area of interest and then select information. So you guys are leaving. Sorry, I didn't have more eye contact. It's really weird.
That's okay.
So you want to come over here and sit so you can see the screen? Okay, so what we're going to do now is, Linda, when you get a chance, we'll open up the web page to the Web Soil Survey, and if we can get the screen on my end as big as possible, that would be terrific. I think
Kristie, you choose the share link in the bottom of the right below your PowerPoint slide, and then you'll want to have that soil web survey open in another window, and then you can choose that window.
So as we're getting set up, I'm kind of just looking at some of the questions. Okay, so a lot of you, this is new. We were familiar with soils in class a long time ago, and only about 20% have used the books and have used the Web Soil Survey. Well, for those of you that have never used the books before, the Web Soil Survey is so much easier to use, to be honest. I learned on the books, so I can tell you how it's kind of changed over time. And show you or talk about how the web version works. It's a lot easier. My students love to use the Web Soil Survey. They just groan when you pull out a book. And most of you use the information for soil information and then the maps. Okay. Oh, well, that's about the same. So it's kind of split between the tables and the maps. The great thing about the web soil survey is you have to start off with the map. That way you cut down most of the information, the unwanted information about other soils in the area.
I don't know if you can hear me, but if you want to share your site, okay, I see you're doing it now. Sorry.
Okay, so I know I'm silent. I'm trying to do two things at one time. I'm trying to open up the website. So, Linda, we're having a little bit of trouble on our side. We are trying to open the web soil survey, and we can't even get on the website.
The site might be down. I see Bob Pickle just posted that. Margarita and Sally.
Every time I try to go on the web soil survey, it's like we don't have internet even though I have internet in here. Let me try to figure out what's going on here.
And Donna says she got it on Firefox. So it might be worthwhile for others to try a different browser to go to Web Soil Survey. Let me put the exercise back. I'll move the exercise, or the file share
so
back.
It looks like there's a lot of people so it's not just me. I'll try it one more time, and then if not, what I'll do is I have an example PDF that I can show you, and then we can try to get back on again. But I wonder if it's the site. Because I have internet, I just can't get on the site itself. Okay, so it looks like everybody's trying to get on the website, and it's probably a website problem. So let's open this PDF and give them a few minutes and see if that works. So I want to open that PDF. So Linda, it looks like you're trying to open the PDF from your end because it says uploading on mine. Note to self, the larger you make the PDF, the longer it takes to download. As I've been telling you this entire time, right? This one actually I made for our soul fertility class. As I mentioned before, we kind of do this prep work using the web soil survey and creating a PDF for a research area out on our farm for their soil fertility management plan. So the soils part of that, it's just kind of making this report. It's the first thing that they do, and then they select 3 to 4 vegetables, crops, trees, shrubs, you name it. It depends on their background, because AgNat, our majors, take soil fertility, and so they're going to come up with annual management plans for each of the crops that they plan to plant. And then kind of as a side note, we actually take samples of the soils out in the field, and each week in our class we do soil analysis. So it might take a soil testing company 2 days to get back to about a certain soil, about the soil analysis. It takes us the whole entire semester. So like CEC, for example, count exchange capacity, it takes us 3 weeks to do here on campus. But that's okay. We take our time, and they learn the different chemicals that we use. Like for phosphorus, there's many different extractants that you can use. We actually do 2 on campus. Okay, so here we go. Awesome. Here's the PDF. And again, this is from Polk County because we're here in Crookston. But what's great about the PDF, so once you've created your PDF using the Web Soil Survey, you have this document that you can give to someone. It's very professional looking. And so for those of you that are familiar with the Crookston campus, UTOC is over here on the left. Valley Tech is right here. This is just kind of the first plot on the farm. And so I chose it because it's not very big. So you can see that I've selected this as our area of interest. So everything in this document is just on this land, not on the other, 2,000 acres. It's just this plot of land. What's really great as I scroll through here is that it's just general information. Unfortunately, you can't really get rid of it, but it's just general information. But this table of contents, you created, okay? You created the table of contents by adding it to your cart, okay? So any information that you want to add, it adds it to this table of contents. So for example, I told you this was a soil fertility class. So we have the basic soil information here. It's nice that this is only one soil in that area. And then we looked at the physical properties and the chemical properties, land classification, productivity, water features, and so forth. Just that little information, which also includes some maps, you're already up to 41 pages. So just keep that in mind. And you know how long we sat here while I downloaded. So it takes a while to bring it up once you've selected it. So if you ever just kind of want to know how soil surveys are made, we talked about them, but just general information in the front of this, and then we get into the soil information. So it's going to show us a very detailed map, very nice professional map of the given area. And what's really nice is you have the scale on the bottom. You can also use the ruler that hopefully I'll get to show you at some point later on the Web Soil Survey to get an idea how big the area actually is. Okay, and then you have a nice legend that goes along with the map. So the first thing is the soil information. It just so happens that there's only one soil in that area, 935 Hingy Fargo Complex, so it makes up 100% of the area, which is nice for us doing this demonstration because it's only one soil. Okay, so it gives us this basic information. This information is the same thing when you go onto the Web Soil Survey and you do your area of interest and the soil information comes up on the left. Remember I told you you could click on the soil and it's a hyperlink to just some basic soil information that you could just print this off using that print option, or you can add it to the PDF, okay? And so it's added to the PDF. It tells us about our parent material, not surprising here in Crookston, Lacustrian. It tells us our drainage classification, poorly drained, so that's probably going to be an issue for us. And also shows a typical profile, silty clay, so it's going to hold a lot of water, not surprising. Are you guys having problems seeing the file? Let me know. I'll go through this part and then I'll go back to the chat. But the slope information, 0 to 1%, restrictive feature, more than 80 inches down. Okay, tells you a little bit about depth to water table, flooding, ponding, available water capacity, and so forth. The land capability classification at 2W, not surprising. If you have flooding and ponding, it's a W wet. And the typical profile that you see there, silty clay, clay, and silty clay. So it's not all the information that you could get in part 1 of the book. It doesn't show you the horizons and the pet-on description with the horizons and all the information per horizon, but it's basic enough. Okay, and then just kind of talks about the things that I selected. So it gives you general information about chemical properties. I selected cation exchange capacity. So it gives you a map. Kind of boring, not a whole lot of color there because it's only one soil type. So that's where you may choose to just present the table if it's one soil, okay? So it tells us our cation exchange capacity is 35 milliequivalents per 100 grams. Not surprising because we have some clay in there that's pretty high. So as far as CEC goes, that's great. Clay and organic matter make up CEC, but we're probably going to have some water problems, some drainage issues going on. pH, what is pH? And then again gives you another map. And then also gives you a table. So that's for those second and third tabs, the suitabilities and the property tabs. They're always going to give you the map and the table. If you just want the table, you go to soil reports. So physical properties, I chose available water 0 to 100 centimeters. And it's going to give me information about that. Another table, or I'm sorry, another graph, and then another table. Okay, so it gives us a rating in centimeters, 0 to 100 centimeters. So you can see really quickly that for this, the graphs aren't that impressive, okay? And that's where you can kind of just choose to provide the tables. The next one is organic matter. So it means more to us to look at what that rating. So 5% organic matter. You know, great for a field if you're growing crops. If you're wanting to grow turf on this, bad idea. Okay, because 5%, we need to do some aerification and get rid of some of that organic matter. Okay, ooh, I went way too fast there. Some other information that I added was land capability classification. This is one of the issues is that we already looked at land capability classification in the soils information. It gave it to us. So there's a little bit of redundancy. So it might be helpful, you know, to kind of review what's in the soil information that's automatically given to you when you do the area of interest, and then not have to add that to the report. But again, in the PDF, before you choose to make this your final version of the PDF, you can click things on and off. You still have that option to the very end, okay? And for us, we always talk about what's the classification. So we're looking at Fargo, Hingy. So we got ERTS from intro soils. We should know that those are all vertisols, right? ERT is the ending or the symbol or representative of a vertisol. And so there's some information about non-irrigated yields and lots of information. But it gives you a table. Water features. So there's a lot of additional information in here that you can add. And then there's a couple of tables in here. So this would just be from the soil reports. So where you don't get a map, you get a table. Sometimes that's more, in this case, beneficial than the maps because we only have one soil type. Okay, and they're really detailed tables, and you can get more information out of them. Okay, so this is just the tables. This is soil moisture, ponding, and flooding. And then you have some references at the end, and that's the end of your PDF. Okay, so you can create, using the Web Soil Survey, your own PDF. Some of you may not be that interested in creating your own PDF. For me, I do this before I go on site visits. For those of you who are just growing a garden and wanting to know basic information, what I would do is select the area and then go to that general chemical physical properties tables under soil reports, and that'll give you basic information. And then you could also, like I said before, send in a soil sample to get a more update representative of your soil. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and see if I can get on Web Soul Survey now. So just give me a second and see if it'll come up. Okay, so everybody can see it good. Okay, I had to switch over to a different screen so I could make sure that you guys could see. Okay, so easy button. Start the Web Soul Survey, right? Oh no, did you guys get that? Terrible. It's telling me that I can't be connected. Oh, technology. Okay, can you guys see this one?
Kristie, can you hear me?
Okay.
If you can hear me,
I'll try this again.
choose share, my computer screen, and then click.
That's crazy that we got the home page, and now I can't even get the home page anymore. Although I have internet in here. It's got to be the actual Soul Survey page, because everything else is working. Yeah, so I just clicked on NRCS and had no problem. So it's actually, looks like it's the web page for the Web Soul Survey. The web gremlins are working against us. Yeah, they are. So funny. Oh, let me try that. Yeah, that's just gonna give us like the PDF information. From the book. That's the only problem with that. Yeah. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. We're going to try this one more time. Yeah, the Soul Data Mart. I went on there. The site's working, but that's all the PDF information from the book, from the Soul Survey book. Which just shows you, table and soul information that was in the PowerPoint from earlier. So I'm trying to go through a different site, a different way of getting to it, the 2.0 version from the NRCS, trying to kind of go through the back door. And it's not working either. So it's definitely the site. Let me see if I can pull up the PowerPoint again, because I can kind of go, I think most people are going to have problems with the area of interest, and I could kind of go through that process again real quick, so you can at least see what the page looks like. Oh, thank you. Because we did kind of run through that a little quickly, because, I thought we were going to be on there. So this is where we were. We got to the home page once, and then we clicked on the easy button, but I guess it wasn't that easy, so to speak. And so we want to make sure that we go to defining our area. So the next thing that you would see online is, after you hit the easy button, would be this page, defining the area of interest, okay? Most people, would just kind of click on Minnesota and then just keep going down in scale. I am not a patient person, so I just click in the address, okay? What I want to show you guys is, I would be able to show you this, if we could see it. Did you guys get it up? I just wanted to show you, if you guys can see what I'm pointing to, is a hand. It's just like a white gloved hand. It's called the pan hand. And sometimes when you put in an address, you may get in the general area, but not exactly your area of interest. And so this pan hand, once you click on it, it shows up on the screen. So let me go to this next page. Let's say that this was our research farm, but I'm interested in a land that's further to the right. I can click on the pan hand, and it's almost like you're moving it like a sheet of paper. So you just move the hand across the page, and it would actually move the map across the page. And I've literally one time went down a highway trying to find a particular area. I kid you not, because I didn't know what the address was. It was kind of out in the boondocks, but I knew what highway it was off of, and so I just panned the maps down the entire highway until I got to the area that I was interested in. Oh, Linda, you are good. Yeah, Linda, I did see it, and I got it up to that point. The question is can we actually start it? Maybe you can try to hit the easy button, and I can see if I can direct you. So we'll see if it comes up. But as we wait for Linda to see if she can get this to work, that pan hand comes very, very, very handy, because sometimes even when you put in the address, it doesn't work. So once you are in the general area, you want to click on either the second to last or last button at the top that says AOI. Remember that, area of interest. There's a kind of a rectangle or a kind of an odd shaped one. I typically use the rectangle because it's just easier to use. And it's just like making a text box in Word. If you've ever made a text box in Word or PowerPoint, you just kind of drag it how big you want to be. Remember, the bigger, the longer it takes to download, okay? And so if I can get back to okay, so we're going to go out a little bit out of order. So it shows you right here the pan hand. Okay, so you click on that hand, it actually moves the sheets for you. But once you've selected the area, it has these diagonal lines. If we could see the entire screen, then up here at the top would be those tabs that I talked about before. And, oh, there you go. There's the little area of interest keys. You would see the tabs at the top, and the tabs would tell you this. Okay, the first thing you want to hit is soil information, and when you do that on the soil information, you get the boundaries of the soils. Okay, which for some of the classes on campus that we teach, you know, it's really important where those soils are in a given field, because if they have this entire area to work from, you know, maybe this soil isn't the best for a garden, so they could move it to a different part of the field and plant that crop there. So you get to see where those soils are with the given field, and it also tells you what percentage, how many acres, and then all the soils here. So looking at my PDF before, where we just had one soil, this area has, 7 soils to go through. So your information is going to be a lot more abundant, and if you choose to make graphs instead of just tables, let me get back to a really pretty picture, then you've got this information or picture that you can share, which really looks really good in a PDF. Or it's just the tables, okay? So let me kind of go back to this slide here, the one that I told you to put a star on. These are your tabs besides just the general soil information. So these first two, suitabilities and soil properties, all this information is actually under soil reports. It's just this is where you're able to get the maps. If you want to bypass maps and you don't care what your PDF looks like, I would just go to soil reports, and you'll see all the information that's actually there. Okay, so I'm just going to skip over to soil reports. Oop, went too far. Okay, and these are the main headings on your left-hand side. So for those of you who are talking about the garden, I'd go to chemical properties and physical properties and maybe throw in some water information there. Okay, and then when you open those up, they show a lot more information within them. And to kind of give you an example of chemical properties, kind of going back, pH is important because, especially in a vegetable garden, some crops have specific pHs that they need to be grown at. Okay, so like for example, I'm thinking blueberries. If you're into flowers, if you want the blue flowers, you need acidic soil, so hydrangeas. You know, it's really good if you're neutral pH. In this area, we're definitely alkaline. But only if you're trying to grow something specific, you may have to change the pH in a given area. Hopefully that's not the case. But cation exchange capacity gives you an idea of how well the soil will hold on to those nutrients. And then how much water is typically available in that 0 to 100 centimeters would be really important to know as well. Okay, and then back to that basic soil information that we saw earlier in the PDF. All that information is extremely helpful as well to know a little bit about the drainage, the land capability classification, but you can find out all of that information again in these individual sections or just in the soil information. Let's see. Oh, the other thing, I can't show you, but let me tell you about something as well. For example, if we went back to one of these and you clicked on, let's say you clicked on land capability classification and it came up, there's an option on the left where you don't have to include the description. So for those of you who know what your land capability classification and you don't need it to be printed because it will add to the PDF pages, you can click or choose not to use or show the description, and it'll decrease the size of your PDF. Okay? So why don't we open it up for some questions. I really wish that, you know, we could go through the process together, but at the same time, I think I've given you a lot of information, enough information to make you dangerous on the website. You definitely know how to get started for sure, okay? And, you know, have a little patience the first couple of times. Don't be in a big hurry. And, you know, if you forget to add it to your shopping cart, no big deal. You can go back to it and add it. You can save the PDF. I would create the PDF and you could save it for future reference on a given area if you're just looking up general information, because you don't want to have to go back to the website and totally redo it again, just for some basic information that you could have saved on your computer.
You mentioned finding the age of the information.
I'm sorry, what?
You mentioned finding the age of the information.
Oh, great, yeah. I said if when we got on the demo to look for how old the information was. Anytime you first start and define your area of interest, there's some information on the left-hand side of the screen. It'll actually tell you when the last time the table data was updated, and last time the map information was updated, which, you know, in the books, it would just be the date that it's published. But they're constantly taking parts of the soil survey, and they update them each year. So it'll actually show you a date when the last time that information was updated. Now, where that can be important is if you're looking at chemical information and you're going off of what the soil test or what the soil survey says rather than a soil test, you know, that information could be pretty old. Okay, so how were the soil types originally determined? Satellite imaging or someone with a soil probe? Actually, soil probe. So scientists went out, dug pits, took soil probes, soil augers, and actually went out and described the soils, which is what we do in intro soils. They get in a pit and they describe it. The horizons, the depths, the colors, the textures, all of that information goes into the soil ped-on description. So part 1 of the soil book, or the first thing you do on the web soil survey. The images actually come from Google Earth, okay? And there's actually, if you get really interested in this stuff, you can use this application even further. Instead of just doing a PDF, you can actually download it using GIS and some other things. But yes, soil scientists have been doing this for 100 years before Google Earth, right? But that's the thing. The original pictures were taken, topographic pictures were taken from airplanes and then satellites and then now Google Earth. So that's why the pictures are best off of the Web Soil Survey. You can't get any better than Google Earth, right? That's what my kids say. Oh, so what is the web address for the survey? Oh, it looks like Linda put it up. It's also in the PowerPoint slide in the Web Soil Survey, the first slide that's shown there. Or you can do a search engine for the Web Soil Survey, and it'll come up as well. Unfortunately, we can't open it. But it gives you homework, right? How many of you, you know, it's been years for homework, right? So now you have something to go, you know, check out. It's your homework. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, especially if you start to kind of do this on your own and you just, like, get completely stuck, just send me an email. I don't have a problem with that. Email's best. I teach quite a few classes, so I'm not in my office very often, so email is the best way to get in touch with me. So, as we were waiting on some final questions, just want to say that this has been fun and interesting. I like doing new things. You know, we had a little bit of hiccups along the way, but that's how we learn. Because, you know, this was actually pretty fun. I would love to do it again. This will be pretty fun. Oh, and if you're interested in knowing more about soils and soils testing, I'm actually giving a talk at the North Central Turfgrass Association meetings in Fargo in the end of February. So if you want to learn about soil testing, you can attend that. It's not online, but, you know, it's in person. And I kind of do those talks every now and then, for sure. But this has been fun. I've never used Connect before, but this was actually kind of fun. I'm glad there were a few people in the classroom with me, because otherwise I'd feel really stupid. I feel like I was talking to myself. But I have to tell you guys a funny story before you go. When people first started doing lectures online, my advisor from my master's and PhD, I went to Purdue University, he was off at some conference giving a talk, but he was trying to stay connected to us in our class. So we had class over the internet, and he was in his hotel room. And his wife usually accompanied him on these trips. And she didn't know that he was on the computer. So the webcam was like looking at him, but the background was the hotel room. And apparently he forgot that she was in the restroom, and she came out in her nightgown out of the bathroom. And so we could all see her on our computer screens, and she was just absolutely mortified. So anytime we had any kind of outing, get together, whatever, she had to bring that story up because she was so embarrassed. So now you just get to see an old picture of me and not actually get to see me. So looks like we're done with questions. Okay, well, it looks like we're kind of coming to the end of questions. Yeah, please give us your feedback if you're still online. For future reference, we'd love to know how this worked for you, so we know how to improve it next time around. And again, thank you for all of you guys that stayed on and stayed with us through some of the technical difficulty. And hopefully, if you're going to do some of the future classes, that you won't have as much difficulty with those classes. All right, well, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Hi, Kristie. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but thanks very much for the presentation you gave and for being so adaptable. I hope people will be able to download the materials that you need from the file share. You select the link, and then that'll give you the Save to My Computer option. I will also post them on the Local Foods